Hello, good people. Welcome back to the Kuhb Games YouTube channel. We are here with some more of the top 50 worst cards in GOAT format's history. We have covered number 50 through 31, so we're going to be starting at number 30 today. And as always, in these videos, I do have Petty with me. So, Petty, say I am the highest placing duelist of GOAT format's history with Skull Guardian to the people.
I am the highest placed duelist in the history of GOAT format, Skull Guardian to the people.
Damn right. Uh, so we played a 3v3 tournament the weekend before this video goes up, and we got second in it, and Petty was playing 2 copies of Skull Guardian. I forgot to turn my lights on. Not that I like to have them on, because they are brighter than the sun. But yeah, so now I am bright, and you all can see that, and these videos are going to be scuffed, and that's going to be perfectly fine, because we are looking at the worst cards here. So I think it's actually kind of fitting that we have the worst quality video possible. Maybe I'll turn it all down to 8-bit and make the screen.
That would be funny.
Yeah, just make the screen look like
the
it's
final
all
video
crumpled.
should be 3060 360p. It should just be and our microphone quality should get increasingly worse over time too. We should have planned this.
Absolutely. I don't know where I cut off on my talking whenever I realized that I didn't have my lights on. But yeah, we played a 3v3 tournament the weekend before this video goes up, and we actually got second. Petty was playing 2 copies of Skull Guardian in his deck because it's a ritual searchable by Arsenal Summoner, and it works with Lighten the Load. So that was a whole lot of fun, and that's where the joke came from for the intro. So number 30 on our list of the worst cards ever printed in GOAT format is none other than Jam Defender. So this is a continuous trap card that says when an opponent's monster declares an attack on a monster you control, you can target 1 revival jam you control. Switch the attack to that target. This, of course, is a card that was used in the anime alongside Card of Safe Return, so that you could just sit there and draw a bunch of cards with revival jam over and over. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite have the same shine that it does in the anime. Pretty much, this card's just a -1. It's never going to be a +1 or even card neutral unless you have it with Card of Safe Return. Or something that allows you to draw a card, I guess, along the way that interacts with it. I can't really think of anything other than Card of Safe Return. Yeah, it's kind of a... And this is going to start sort of like a trend on these 10 cards. It's kind of a do-nothing -1. Yeah, essentially, it just doesn't really do anything. It's completely outclassed by all of the battle traps, because like if you want to redirect attacks to your revival jam and then have to pay 1,000 life points to get it back, why wouldn't you just play Sakuretsu Armor or Widespread Ruin or Mirror Force or, you know, Wall of Revealing Light, or really anything along those lines, right?
Yeah, I think that this card's going to be controversial because people are going to look at the other cards on the list and be like, there's no way this is worse than Recycle. But it really comes down to the fact that the thing that it's attempting to do, it is not bad. It's just also not good. There are so many different ways that it can be foiled. Like, you target the revival jam, but if they remove the revival jam from the board, it doesn't even work, right? And then the opponent can just attack as if they were going to before. And so it's not even a good battle trap. It gets outclassed not even by like Sakuretsu Armor, but by cards that are far worse than Sakuretsu Armor.
Yeah.
Because it just and it kind of presumes that you're going to have more than one monster on the field other than Revival Jam. And so if you don't, it's useless. You know? And it's bad, and it requires like very specific timing. Like it's a continuous trap, and so you flip it when the opponent declares an attack, but it's just like it's prone to being removed. I think the cost of it is worse than just the -1 you get when you play it, because if you're making a strategy around this card, your deck's going to be bad compared to these other cards that if you throw in the sparks, it's not going to like irreparably ruin your strategy. But I think Jam Defender is like a virus that will spoil your entire deck.
Is it like a germ infection?
Oh my, I would rather have germ infection. I'm just gonna say that germ infection does something good, and
that's
not
fair.
Quickly, mind you, but it's something that's good.
Yeah, when you put it the way that like Jam Defender requires you to have another monster on the field other than just the revival jam, Not only is
Mhm.
this card a -1 that does nothing, but it's also win more. And
Yeah, right.
because like you're already probably in an okay position, right?
Yeah, and I we talked about it before about Revival Jam specifically, and we both agreed that Revival Jam as a card, it's not bad.
Yep.
But if Revival Jam were better, then Jam Defender would be better.
Yep.
But it's not, and so it's not.
Yeah, just pretty much just no use for the card. It's never gonna help you any more than any other card really could. So super outclassed, inherent -1, just like the rest of the ones on this list today.
That's a final note. That's a final note.
Sure.
And this is controversial. I don't like the art. I don't like the art of Jam Defender. What about you?
I actually do like this art.
But it's not Revival Jam.
That's true.
What is that?
I
And
guess
what is the monster behind him?
That's a good question. I guess like just like standalone art. I don't know. I'm sort of like drawn to colors and stuff, and it's kind of the colors kind of do it for me. But maybe...
I agree. I like the eyes and the monster in the back behind the Jam guy, but this feels like a Covering Fire situation where we could have gotten some really cool art, but we didn't.
That's true. Oh god, Covering Fire art's so much. It's so good. All right, up next we have. Is this the first equip spell on the list?
I think so.
I believe this is the first equip spell on the list. Yeah.
Oh no. Germ Infection.
Oh, you're. Well, how
and
can
Cyclone Laser actually.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I don't have eyes. All right, we have our third equip spell on the list. We have Scroll of Bewitchment. Like I said, this is an equip spell, and its effect reads: select one attribute. Change the attribute of the equipped monster to the one you select. There are things that you can do with this card. You can change your monster to the fire attribute to work with Ultimate Baseball Kid or Molten Destruction, or you can change it to dark so it'll work with Mystic Plasma Zone, or you can change it to water. So now its level can be a level 3 maybe and get under a level limit or gravity bind with a legendary ocean on the field.
Oh, it's not
but bad. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, it is. It's awful.
yeah, no, this card, those are pretty much all of the scenarios I can think of where this card would be good. I'm trying to think of like how you could equip it to an opponent's monster to change its attribute and make that be good for you, but I can't even think of anything. ...
Infinite Dismissal. Yeah, I don't really know. This is another example of a card that just is immediately outclassed by other cards that are just bad. Like, why would you ever play this in your dueling deck rather than like DNA Transplant or just Homunculus, the alchemic being, if you really want like a specific attribute on like a monster?
Yeah, at least that can attack for 1800. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe this card should have given some sort of stat boost. Like anything.
Yeah, I can see two different universes. One where they gave this card like a lot of text, like one of the bullet points, like if you make it fire, then it gets this. If it gets wind, it gets this. I could see that. I could also see a worse version of this card, honestly. I could see it being a normal spell card where it has the same effect, but it does not work for more than one turn. They're like, you select one attribute, you get it for one turn, done. But then again, maybe that would be better, because let's imagine that let's say Ultimate Baseball Kid, right? Mm-hmm. You put your Scroll of Bewitchment on your Bite Shoes to make it fire to boost Baseball Kid. Baseball Kid attacks in with the boost, and then they MST Scroll of Bewitchment. You lose Baseball Kid.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's bad because it's vulnerable. You can, if it has a really good effect that you're like building your strategy around, all they need to do is Regeki break it, and then you lose.
That's true. I didn't really have it on my card today that taking away permanents from some of these effects would make the card better, but yeah. I guess that...
I think it simultaneously makes it better and worse.
Yeah.
It's just like, this idea is not good, is the problem, regardless of its form.
No, that's absolutely true. The card's basically just a nothing burger.
Yeah. Honestly, now that you said that, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the broken bamboo sword that we get later on. That like it exists and it has no effect, and you're like, oh, that's curious. Like, why not? And then you look and there's like other supporting cards.
Yeah.
I could see they're like being an archetype around, like, oh yeah, if you have Scroll Bewitchment on the field, like all fire monsters die or something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about Acid Rain and Exile the Wicked, those kinds of things, but those don't deal with attributes, so
Yeah, it feels
doesn't
like
really
very
even work
little.
there. The next one on our list here is basically along the same lines as this card. We talked about this for a little bit. We think this card is a little less useful because Scroll of Bewitchment does have the field spells and Ultimate Baseball Kid and stuff like that. But all right, so Dueling Book crashed on us. It could not handle the worst cards in Goat Format's history. This is the most scuffed video on the channel of all time, I think. But yeah, our next card is sort of like Scroll of Bewitchment. This is Demotion. This is also an equip spell. And it reads, downgrade the monster equipped with this card by 2 levels. I can think of 2 scenarios where that is useful. The first one, and I think the obvious one, is you can get your monsters under level limit or gravity bind if you need to. And the other scenario is you can downgrade a monster's level so that you can get a better metamorphosis target, maybe.
Oh, that's clever.
But like the higher level ones are better anyway, usually.
Yeah.
So
it should be promotion. It would definitely not make the list.
Yeah.
It would be too good.
yeah. Upgrade your level 3 to a level 5 so it can't attack anymore, but you can go into Reaper on the Nightmare. Yeah, no, this just kind of another do nothing card, and does even less than Scroll of Bewitchment, I think. Just play Spell and Trap removal. Pretty much, right? Can you think of anything other than level limit or gravity bind that this thing does anything with?
I mean, honestly, not really. I'm trying to think if there's like a fancy thing that you can do to demote one of your opponent's monsters instead of yours. That would be good. But I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on the thought of like, kind of like we were talking earlier videos. Like, why couldn't they let you decide the level? Would that be too good?
Right.
Like, why can't it just be equip spell that's like, yeah, like declare a level, that monster is now the level? Because then, there could be things that you could do with that, with like ritual cards or metamorphosis, stuff like that. And so it would still be quite bad. But the specifics of going down by 2 exactly it's so bad.
Especially like this early in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. I don't think that would pose a problem. I don't know if I know a lot of like level changing cards and stuff like Level Eater. I think Level Eater was actually banned later on in Yu-Gi-Oh, but like in the context of Goat format, being able to choose the level would be so much better. And also still bad.
It would still be bad. Yeah. I think you kind of need later support to make this card even like a consideration of whatever you're doing. But by then it's like totally outclassed, right? Because like Level Eater, you get, it basically goes +1 to do that effect.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's great. But yeah, Demotion's bad. It's also bad because it's an equip spell, which is probably one of the worst types of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! In terms of like vulnerability and it's like spell speed and the fact that you can't use it during your opponent's turn. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. There's really, I would love to hear people in the comments kind of chime in about this card specifically, because it does feel like theoretically you could do something, because it does have a unique effect. There is really no other card that we can bring up that's like, it does this exact thing. And so maybe there is something that we're just not seeing. However, there's no way it's going to be good, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. All right, up next, we have this card that has sort of a unique effect. Infinite Cards kind of does the same thing, but infinitely better. We have Hieroglyph Lithograph. This card reads, pay 1,000 life points. During the current duel, your hand size limit becomes 7. Cool.
Yay.
Yeah. Here are my 1,000 life points. I would like to keep 1 extra card in my hand, please.
I'm looking at this card, and once again, I'm struck by the impulse of like, why are they forcing a number on you? Why can't either you decide or it just be unlimited?
Yep, and that's why Infinite Cards is up here at 50. And this one's all the way down here at what, 27?
It's interesting. I can see the potential in this card. I think if they gave some tweaks, it could be better. Like, if this were during the match instead of just the duel, it would be pretty cool because then you could go into games 2 and 3 with like a lingering effect from your game 1. And it's like
Yeah.
not a very good effect. And so that would not be broken at all. But I think it would be kind of neat. Especially if you can like sideboard into a strategy that really enjoys having 7 cards. But that's a hypothetical situation that doesn't exist. What we have
Actually,
is the 3 rocks.
actually, you say that, and I remember reading about something probably a few months ago or so, where there was originally confusion around this card of what it means by
Okay.
the duel.
Okay.
And I think that was like more confusion back during the day. I think we, at this point know that that means one game, but at some point I think there was
Mhm.
confusion of does this last for the entire match?
I can reasonably see why they would think that. Just based on what it does, it's really tough to consider this card. I mean, this is unlike Jam Defender. This is a card that I want to defend because I think the art is awesome. Um, and
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's so tough because most of the time you actually kind of like the hand limit because if you're in like a desperate situation where you're completely bricked, you can just pass and discard the hand size, and that could unbrick you. Or this does the opposite of that. And so
Yeah, I did make an argument for this card maybe being better than a couple of the next few cards on our list, but we are going to include it a little bit higher than those because this is a little bit of a unique effect. Like I said, I believe it is just this and infinite cards, right?
I think that's right. And even within those 2 cards, this card is still unique in that like, it only affects you and it's only 7, specifically 7.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, maybe there is some application where you want exactly one more card. I don't know.
Up next is a card that actually a few people have mentioned whenever they were watching these videos. So I don't think this card comes as a surprise really to anyone in our list of neg ones that don't really do anything, and that is Solomon's Lawbook. This is a card that a lot of people look at and they're like, "Oh, this card absolutely does nothing." And yeah, it is a trap card that just says skip your own standby phase. It doesn't entirely do nothing. So this card was printed in Pharaoh Servant alongside the likes of Imperial Order and cards that have a I want to say upkeep cost from Magic, but it's but yeah, this card was basically to skip your standby phase so that you didn't have to pay for those cards, and maybe you could keep them around a little bit longer, save you some life points. The problem with that is one, that's just not a strong effect in and of itself.
Yeah.
But also, all of those cards are optional. You can just get rid of them. You don't have to pay. So the best that this is going to do is give you an extra turn with those cards if you either just don't want to pay for them or you don't have enough life points to keep them around. So it's essentially useless, but not entirely.
Yeah. I mean, the example I can think of is like not paying for Mirror Wall specifically is pretty good because
Yeah.
that card is like effectively a floodgate because the attack is the reduction is permanent, and so your opponent really doesn't want to attack in. And so not having to pay the maintenance cost of that seems pretty good to me. But I think that this is like a very, very, very near miss in terms of if this were a continuous trap card, I think it would actually be very good. If you could never pay upkeep on any of your cards forever and just never have standby phases, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, Mirror Wall, obviously, like, Messenger of Peace, Imperial Order, whenever it was legal, even like Fairy Box, stuff like that, they don't really cost you a whole lot, so it's kind of negligible. But yeah, Mirror Wall being 2,000, that is a very steep cost. So yeah, I could see it having more applications than that. But yeah, if it was a continuous trap and you could just sit there with Mirror Wall on the field, that'd be pretty awesome.
It would be awesome, and I don't think it still wouldn't be great because you
Right.
would still be going neg one to like save life points, and that's generally just not like a winning proposition. But I could see a deck that builds around like high maintenance cost monsters, and you could really work it out. But that's not how the card works. And so it's a one-time neg one card that, and like it's not even just a one-time neg one card. It's like a combo piece specifically. Like it only has its effect if you have some other like dedicated support that you don't want to pay for, and so it's even more situational than it needed to be, and so I think it's worse than our 3 Lithograph boys.
I guess like we haven't mentioned that you can play this with the Archfiend cards.
Yeah,
But who's playing the Archfiend cards?
Nobody. And then you would play
Yeah.
Pandemonium instead, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The
And
the
so
field
yeah.
spell that actually works with the archetype. Yeah. Yeah. Probably would play that.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more Archfiend cards later.
Oh no. Don't give up the goods.
We're not going to give up the goods. You all are going to have to wait till next week for that one. But moving on from Solomon's Lawbook, we have another card that, or does not have very many applications. In fact, it has exactly 3, and that is Pyro Clock of Destiny.
Oh,
If
boy.
you all want to, pause the video right now and comment what 3 cards this card works with.
I can only think of 2.
Can only think of 2. I can think of all 3.
Yeah.
I recently looked up the rulings on this card. It works with exactly 3. And the text on the card says, move the turn count forward by 1 turn. The turn in which this card is activated continues as normal. You would think this might work with Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, and you would be incorrect. This card works with Final Countdown, Swords of Revealing Light, and Light Force Sword.
That's it. That's the card I missed.
Yeah, that's it. So essentially, it is also useless, just like Solomon's Lawbook, because instead of using this with Final Countdown, you can use Threatening Roar, Wabaku, Thunder of Ruler, or Frozen Soul, and those do the exact same thing in terms of moving the clock count forward 1, while also stopping your opponent from killing you. This card is outclassed in every single way, unless you want to use it yourself against your opponent's Light Force Sword or Swords of Revealing Light to speed those up a little bit. But even then, like, you can just play spell and trap removal to get the Swords of Revealing Light out of the way, or you can just be like any other duelist and realize your opponent's not playing Light Force Sword. So there's almost zero reason to have this card in your deck in any case that it could be useful in, because it's so outclassed by other things and does nothing. But it's not lower on the list because there are some bad ones coming up.
So Cub, I have a complicating factor that I just thought of while you were talking.
Okay.
And you're going to have to decide whether what I'm about to tell you makes this card better enough to move it up on the list a little bit. Because I just thought of a mystery 4th way to use the card.
What
and
is
it's
that?
pretty good. 4th way. All right. So as Cub talked about at the beginning of the video, we just got back from a 3v3. And in my very first match of the 3v3, I went into time. And the way that time worked at that event and most in-person GOAT events is that when you go into time, you play a total of 4 turns, starting with 0, 1, 2, and 3. And then at the end of that, whoever has the most life points wins the duel. And so what I'm thinking is, if you know you're about to go into time in game 3, you have this in your sideboard. You bring it in, and you can reduce the number of turns in time by 1. And your opponent will never see it coming. And so they could base their strategy on knowing that there's exactly 4 turns left, and you can reduce that. What do you think?
Now I have to look this up. Okay, so Petty asks about how Pyro Clock of Destiny works in the turn count at the end of a game if you go into time. We have been down so many different just roads with rulings questions today that we looked up all the rulings, we asked some questions. It does not turn the time forward if you are in turns in a game. So it literally only works with the 3 cards that I mentioned, and that is it. There is no other use for Pyro Clock of Destiny, and I know some of you are going to come down in the comments and you're going to say, but Cub, what about Deck Devastation Virus? Doesn't it work with that? I looked it up, and that's what Pojo said. Yeah, and you know what? I looked it up on Pojo too, and that's what Pojo did tell me. However, goatformat.com, right here, you can only use Pyro Clock of Destiny to advance the turn count by 1 for Swords of Revealing Light, Light Force Sword, or Final Countdown. I realize my face is blocking this a little bit, but here you go, right here. That's the ruling. Only those 3 cards. That's all you can use Pyro Clock of Destiny for. This card is bad. It is very bad.
Yeah.
And I think at this point of the video, I'm done talking about it.
Let's move on.
We have
Oh,
actually, speaking of some of the ruling stuff that we've looked at, I know we're kind of rambling. This video's a little scuffed, but that's okay. We're halfway through this list. We have actually had to take 2 cards and move them down significantly on the list because we found through rulings that they are much worse than we thought they were. Yeah,
Look forward to that.
Oh yeah. Look forward to that next week. This next card is probably going to make some people sad because it is a card that a lot of people like. A lot of people like to play. I've seen people suggest this on videos before, like legitimately as a card that should be played in some decks, in my videos and some others. And this card is cost down. This does hurt my child's soul a little bit to put this card on this list, because I definitely played it with Jinzo back in the day like everyone else did. But let's be real, cost down's a -2. You have to discard one card. For the rest of the turn, you can reduce the levels of all monsters in your hand by 2. This basically lets you summon a level 6 as a normal summon without tributing, which is cool. It's a useful effect, but why not just -1 and tribute summon the monster? Like, I guess maybe maybe you've got some good monsters on the field, like you want to attack with your 3 Spirit Reapers after summoning that Jinzo, but it's just not worth the amount that you have to give up. Like, maybe if you didn't have to discard, maybe if this card was just a -1, it would be a whole lot better, but -2, that is a very, very steep cost to do something that's not even like amazingly powerful, because you can't even special summon the monster. It eats up your normal summon as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking that you would kind of need something like Ultimate Offering to make this card worth it. But Ultimate Offering is like an additional, effectively a -1, because it gives you another mechanic that you can use, but it itself doesn't do anything except be susceptible to destruction, right?
Yeah.
And so I mean, you totally can play just like a ton of vanilla, or I guess not vanilla, like level 6 monsters in your hand. Take the -2, flip Ultimate Offering, and summon maybe 2 or 3 monsters from your hand in one turn. You could do that, but like as you say, like the basic game mechanic of being able to tribute is less punitive than this card is, and so it's kind of like it's you would really have to struggle to build around cost down. And we've kind of talked about how cards that make you do that are inherently going to go further down on the list, because they should enable strengths in the deck rather than require buttressing from other cards to make them less bad.
For sure. And I think, like, whenever you look at this card next to like Pyro, Clock of Destiny, Solomon's Lawbook, Hieroglyph, Lithograph, you're like, well, at least this does something good. And that is the case. But I think at some point, the cost of the card sort of overtakes a card doing nothing a little bit, especially when, like, you know, like we've said a couple of times now, when you could just use the basic game mechanic to cost yourself less.
Yeah, and it's especially bad because, like, when you go even further down, so you're paying a whole bunch to get this monster out, you have to make sure that it's worth it. Like, if you're going to summon this Jinzo, you have to make sure they just don't have some spot removal for Jinzo immediately, because then it's even worse, right? And so it also requires you to kind of like giant Trunade or something first, where I guess like Jinzo protects himself. But if you're summoning anything else, like you're using this to summon out your Blue Eyes White Dragon for only 1 tribute, like it's just not good.
Yeah, they definitely should have changed the text on this card and called it cost up.
Oh my god. You only get 1 pun per episode, and I feel like you've already made one.
I'm on like pun 3 at this point.
Now, lore question: do we know what card this is on cost down?
I was gonna
level 4.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question. I don't immediately recognize that art.
The colors are like Hitatsumi Giant, right? But that doesn't look like it would be that high in the frame.
This maybe it is.
No, it is, isn't it?
Is it?
That's his little elbow. Yeah, gotta be.
Yeah, I think that is Hitatsumi Giant. We figured it out.
The card's better than we thought.
Yeah. Yeah, card's sick. Everybody loves the Hitatsumi Giant.
It's kind of funny, though, that like that's the card they chose. I mean, Hitatsumi Giant's great and everything, but like, shouldn't they attempt to demonstrate the use of the card by making it a level 6, for an example?
Yeah, it absolutely should have been Jinzo on the card. Like, this card was printed to summon Jinzo back in the day. I'm almost 100% convinced on that one. But moving on to our next card, we have another Rulings Nightmare. This is the counterpart to Grave Lure, which we have talked about, I believe, it was last week. This card is Pharaoh's Treasure. So this one is a trap that reads, shuffle this card face up into your deck. If you draw this face-up card that was added to the deck by this effect, send it to the graveyard. Then target one card in your graveyard, except this card. Add that target to your hand. Gravelure at least like destroys a card from your opponent, so it's kind of like a delayed drop-off. Whereas this just is a 1-for-1 to trade for something in your graveyard, which is just not good. On base level, like you're not even playing a spell. Well, I guess maybe you do play a spell that says add one. Yeah, you absolutely would play a spell that just says add one card from your graveyard to your hand, because then you're getting back. Then you're getting back Trinity. But when it's delayed like this, and then you add on top of it like the Ruling's Nightmare of like you gotta call the judge over now to shuffle your deck, and all of that stuff. It's just like I don't know. You're never gonna get this effect off. I've tried. I played it in one of the Pirates videos for Meme Deck Monday back in the day, and it's just I don't know. Like you're just never gonna get this effect off. It's not worth taking up an entire slot in your deck to play this card. It's pretty much just nothing.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's like so many different avenues for this, because I'm like, okay, let's try to make this work. It's bad because it is a trap card, so you have to like draw it and then set it. It has to survive, and then you activate it. It's like there's like a delay with even getting this started, which is already quite bad.
No, whenever you draw it,
there's the Ruling Nightmare.
Whenever you draw it, it immediately goes to the graveyard.
That's good. And I was reading it, and I'm like, this card would be so funny if it could miss the timing. I would love that. Like if you drew it off a charity and then you missed the timing with this card, it would be so funny. But no, that's not true. And so that's good. I mean, you can use Cat of Ill Omen, right? Stack it on the top, then you draw it.
Yeah, that's true. But like,
yeah,
then you're playing Cat of Ill Omen in your deck. And you're not using Cat of Ill Omen to combo. Like Cat of Ill Omen's like entire thing is to tutor a combo piece. You're literally just tutoring this to grab a random card from your graveyard when you could just be grabbing any other trap to further your game plan.
And you can't even use the Cat of Ill Omen Necro Valley effect, right? Because if it gets added directly to your hand, you don't get the effect. And so Necro Valley can't be up, I think.
Yeah, no, that is that is absolutely correct.
It's really tough. I can see where they're going with this. I think it's actually really kind of a cool concept. They could have made it better by like the second you draw this card, it gets sent back in the deck, and then if you draw it again, you can tutor literally any card, like from the Banish Zone, from graveyard, from deck, like anything you want could be added to your hand. That would be bad, but it would still be better, you know? But it's the combination of the setup, all the setup, and then what the payoff is depends on what cards you've already played. It's just not good. Yeah,
it's just bad.
Cool art though.
Yeah, it does have cool art, that's for sure.
Imagine a premium gold rare with this card.
Oh god. All right, up next, we have our first monster card in a very long while. And I guess this is a good point to come in and say it takes a lot to get a monster on these lists, because a lot of them, like even if they're really bad, like baseline they attack for 1,200 or 1,000 or something like that. So even like a lot of the bad monsters are useful in a way that like they can end the game. But some of them take a lot of effort to summon out, and whenever they are summoned, you get a not very great effect for all of that effort that you had to put in to get that monster onto the field. So in this spot we have none other than Spirit of the Pharaoh, and this we're also going to lump in the sarcophagus cards. So the first, second, and third sarcophagus are basically in this slot with Spirit of the Pharaoh. Now, obviously, those cards, like the second and third sarcophagus, literally do nothing. But it'd be kind of disingenuous to like have, you know, all of those and a bunch of other cards that are just completely useless on the list, just kind of clunking up spots when we could be talking about different cards. So Spirit of the Pharaoh is kind of a stand-in for that. This is a level 6, 2,500 attack, 2,000 defense. Has to be special summoned by the effect of the first sarcophagus, which is never going to happen. But when it is special summoned, you can target up to 4 level 2 or lower zombie normal monsters in your graveyard, special summon those targets. Why on earth, if you have to go through all of this effort to bring this thing out, do we have so many restrictions on the monsters that it can summon?
Lore, that's why. It's
Yeah.
totally lore.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. Just let me summon 4 zombies. Any of them. Like, why do I have to get, what is it, Clown Zombie? Yeah, Clown Zombie is like the biggest monster that you can get with this, which I think has 1350 attack, which isn't
big.
Yeah, it's not really that bad, but like, you have to fill your deck full of normal monsters, and then you have to get them into the graveyard, and then you have to be able to special summon this thing off of the effect of the first sarcophagus. It's just, it's never going to happen. And if it does, you've already made your deck so bad that cool, you got your payoff and you're probably still going to lose.
Yeah. You can just tell what monsters they were intending. 'Cause there's like Pharaoh's Servant and Pharaonic Guardian are like cards, right? That qualify for this. Yeah. And so like they're obviously meant to be those, but like there isn't archetypical support for the cards. They're just bad. They're worse than other alternatives that are non archetypical that you could summon instead. And so it's really cool. It's a light monster, which is great because it just has some utility. Just like in the hand, you can ditch it, and then that's a light. That's great and everything. But it speaking of Pharaoh's treasure and stuff, it just requires so much. And you, at the end of it, you finally do it after 5 hours of attempts, and then you get this, and you're like, I have to have monsters in the graveyard.
Yeah.
It can't even tutor it from anywhere. Like, I had to already have gotten rid of these. It's so bad.
Yeah, and to get like the full effect out of the card, you have to have 4 that you've already, like, I don't know, let them die in battle or whatever, discarded to Raigeki Break. You've had to use resources probably over multiple turns to get those in the graveyard, which I guess to even summon this thing, you're going to have to go through multiple turns anyway. But like using resources to then get back mediocrity after some giant setup, it's just not worth it. Just like do something else to revolve your deck around other than this guy.
I think what puts the final strike for this card for me is that it is a special summon only card from first sarcophagus. It's not a like must first be special summoned card. Because if you could keep bringing it back,
yeah,
and it would get its effect every time it comes back, it would still be very, very, very bad. But then at least it would be, okay, I did all this work, I got him out, and if they are able to get rid of him, I can get him back, and it'll be okay. Like, I already passed the hump. But no, this is a one and done thing. Once they get rid of him, it's over.
Yep. And there's not even any protection for itself or the zombies you get back. So just run, headfirst into a Mirror Force. Cool. They're all gone.
And I don't want to be mean to it, but its stats are kind of mediocre for what it is.
Yeah.
Like 2,500, it's not bad, but it's also like not good. It gets over like a lot of threats, but it feels like it should be a substantially bigger monster, like 3,000 plus attack points.
Yeah, it's like this card draws a lot of comparisons to, Destiny board. Because they both sort of work in the same way. The first sarcophagus brings the second and third out to the field. Destiny board brings the spirit messages out to the field. At least the payoff for Destiny board is you literally win the game.
Right.
With no other setup. Like, it sets itself up, it brings those cards out of your deck, and then you just win the game. This card requires setup. You have to get all of those. You have to get all of the sarcophagus onto the field to bring this out, and then you just don't win the game. And you don't really put up that big of a board, really. You have 5 monsters, but 4 of them suck. And then this guy, like you said, has mediocre stats. So yeah, it's just it's a lot of work for just not very much of a payoff.
So I will say that I'm glad this card exists, insofar as it definitely gives kind of an opportunity for people to create their own challenge within the game. Like, you definitely aren't going to be using this card in any competitive like environment trying to win the game, but there are definitely people who approach this game like, I'm gonna summon Spear of the Pharaoh and that's my goal, and if I do it then I win. Right? And so there are a couple cards like that in GOAT format, and I think it's really cool when people are trying to do that. And you can tell it's cool because whenever you're on ladder and you come across somebody who does that, the opponent's always super happy. They're like, oh, that's so cool, and like everyone kind of roots for cards like this. And so creating your own mini game, I think, is part of the essence of why this format is such a good time. And so I'm glad Spear of the Pharaoh exists.
Yeah, I do share that sentiment. Definitely glad the card exists, but maybe if you're trying to be competitive, don't put it in your deck.
Or maybe just the one copy.
Yeah, or maybe
Can
just
you
the
imagine
one.
playing three?
Brick City. All right. So my headphones obviously are not on. Those died. This whole video has just been an absolute slog to get through, and it is scuffed. But it's been fun. And if you all are still here listening to this, we have a very simple one to send you off with for this week. Thankfully,
So you
but we
say.
have. So we say. I'm sure we'll find some weird ruling rabbit hole to go down with this one as well. Though I'm not sure how you can when the card only has 4 words on it. This is Blue Medicine. You gain 400 life points. Congratulations. You have won the lottery. You have drank the juice. You are 400
juice.
life points richer. I guess like I know we had Sparks and Rhyme separate, but we're kind of just lumping in Red Medicine here with Blue Medicine. Both cards are completely negligible. Gaining life is worse than inflicting damage to your opponent, and this is the worst of the worst by only gaining 400. So I'm not really sure that there's much more to say about this card. Unless you've got something, Petty.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the reason why Sparks isn't the worst card in the format is that you can use it when you go into time in real life events. And if you gain 400 life points in time in sudden death, that just means you win. Obviously, you would rather play a multitude of other cards, including Sparks, over Blue Medicine, but it does have an application in that way. Gaining life points, I think, is a trap for kind of beginner duelists that they're like, yeah, if I gain life points, then I won't die as quick. And so, like, even the good life point cards are not as good as people think they are. And so, this being the worst one of them kind of automatically puts it pretty low on the list.
But Petty, you won a game in time last weekend by 100 life points. What if your opponent was playing Blue Medicine?
I would have lost. I literally would have lost if my opponent was playing Blue Medicine instead of Sakuretsu Armor.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, Blue Medicine, it's not doing much, but like we said, it does have the applications in time. I guess it kind of has applications against burn, but gaining 400 life points is completely negligible against that deck. People don't even play Solemn Wishes to get 500 off of one draw step. Yeah, that is, I think, I'm gonna wrap up the video for today. Next week we start to get into the very bad stuff. Of course, we're gonna be in our top 20 at that point. But yeah, Petty, do you have anything to say before we sign off here?
See you next Wednesday.
Yep. See you all next Wednesday.